Time now for the voice of the land on the Big Play Network with your hosts, Kevin Arnold and Always Positive Jay.
We haven't had a chance to talk about this yet since the news broke on Friday. I believe he passed away on Thursday night, is what people are saying. But the news broke midday, 3:00 around, I think on Friday. And, the whole world, the city of Cleveland, at least the sports world of Cleveland, stopped because this is an absolute legend and a guy that, a lot of people in Cleveland, whether you saw him play or you didn't, have known to be one of the greatest of all time. Now, ranking wise, I totally understand what Chris is saying. I actually appreciated that comment that he made, that if you haven't seen him, why rank him? I feel like we kind of follow that without actually saying those kind of words. He kind of put it in perspective much better than we could on this show. I'm as good of words as anybody, but
so when you were off, I totally did a top 5 of all the teams. It wasn't ranking. It was different though. We were saying our favorite top 5 players of each team from Cleveland. So it wasn't saying who's better or like any way like that. It was just who you liked watching. So I guess we still fit his role because it was who we liked to watch. Yeah.
Jay, Jim Brown, a flawed, yes, and I think it's important to talk about those things.
I wanted to hit on
domestic violence allegations and things like that. Those things that are still, they all make up who Jim Brown was. You can't just neglect part of the story, and that's what we've kind of done with Deshaun Watson too. We will talk just the strict football standpoint and how good of a player he is or should be and can be. And if this team goes anywhere this year, it's going to be because Deshaun Watson gets back to form as a great football player. But we, on this show, try to make sure that the whole story is told. So it's also difficult in these instances when someone passes away to, a lot of people are talking about, well, we shouldn't be talking about the good stuff Jim Brown did because he did this. Well,
here's how I feel
you should.
Kevin.
You should be talking about his story and still celebrating his life and accomplishments that he had. You can still do that when at the same time having those difficult conversations like, you know what? This is a guy that's been considered legendary. People stop when he walks in a room. Everybody just gets starstruck, whether they're a big star themselves or not. And yet they still have their flaws. Well, and I think that's important to the human element.
I appreciate the fact that Chris brought that up because, obviously you don't want to speak ill of the dead.
No.
And in Jim Brown, there were a lot of great things that he did. And when I did see that he passed, everything I saw online was just praising him. I'm like, wait a minute, he had some issues, and I think it does all of us a disservice to think that anyone is perfect, because we're all human. We all have flaws. There's all things that we've done in our lives that we look back and regret. Some obviously worse than others, but I think we get into this mentality of putting athletes and celebrities on a pedestal, and we shouldn't gloss over the faults and the issues, but we should recognize that, hey, they're human, and they're a lot more like us than we probably think. And I think a lot of people try to emulate the perfection, the false perfection that they see, and don't take into account that everyone is human, and so I really do appreciate I think it's saying he was flawed. He did great things, but he had flaws. I think that was a great way to put it without, piling on negativity.
And I was thinking about this, and it's, your mistakes don't define who you are as a human being. If you make a mistake, is it going to go on your so-called life file and everyone's going to know about it? Yes, but it doesn't define who you are. It's how you learn from mistakes and what you do after those mistakes that defines who you are. So
Yeah.
with Jim Brown, he did so much more good after his mistakes. And does it wash it away? No, it's always there. It's a stain that's going to stay there forever. But you saw, like, okay, this guy recognized he was doing wrong. He righted himself and did far more good than he did bad. Like, his good definitely outweighs his bad. I don't know how many accounts of whatever happened, but he saved thousands of lives with what he's done throughout his life.
Right. It's important to acknowledge and, not hide part of the story, but to talk ill of the dead. I mean, people that just want to talk about the negative side and then, making all these public comments like that, whether it's, just a random person on Twitter or whoever it may be, there's a family grieving right now. And most of us, if not all of us, know what that's like to go through, and everybody goes through grief differently. And to just focus on that and try to trash a person because of it, that's not the right way to do it. What we're doing here is just saying we're acknowledging those things. And like you said, Jay, I mean, a guy that righted himself, he took advantage of a second chance, a second opportunity. Second chances are that's what human nature is. We should give people second chances. It's the people that take advantage of the second chance in a negative way, where then they have to, they're looking for a third chance and a fourth chance and a fifth chance, like all these chances, but they don't actually change. That's not Jim Brown. And,
I hope Deshaun Watson's taking a lesson from this. Like, okay, look, this dude's a legend. He made big mistakes. I've made big mistakes. Let me do more right than I did wrong.
And you hear a lot of like former Browns players and even current Browns players that got a chance to interact with him because he would be around the team so often. And I know that I heard a story that, was it last year, that the Browns did mini camp a day at the Hall of Fame Stadium. I think they did a day of mini camp down there. One of the days when Kevin Stefanski's been the coach, and on the bus ride down, they watched A Football Life, the Jim Brown story. And, each new generation of Browns players should know Jim Brown. I mean, just in general, if you're a sports fan, you should know who Jim Brown is. It's just going to be, the way he is talked about and the way he is taught to newer and newer generations is a little different now. Unfortunately, that he is no longer with us. But, it's a guy that played 9 seasons, went out probably in his prime still, and went off and did movies. And did a lot of philanthropic work as well. And had his flaws. But, again, I go back to what I said to Chris, Jay. The fact that a guy like LeBron, and there's other athletes, he's not the only example, but he's the best example I can give right now, who is put on that pedestal that Peter just said. And I know LeBron's got his flaws. Like, we haven't heard many of them, but I'm sure there's plenty of flaws for him.
Peter has his flaws. You have your flaws. I'm the only one that does not have flaws. No, I'm joking. Right. But yes, I have more than probably all of you guys. But
I need to hit leave meeting right now.
Oh man, like, I'm feeling a little feisty today. But one of the coolest pictures is the one where LeBron, and he bows to Jim Brown.
Yes.
The lady in the dress behind him, the kid behind him. That's my boss and her son. Every time I see it, I'm like, man, they're so lucky. And I'm like, did you talk to him at all? And they're like, I was afraid to. I was like, what? What? I was so mad. I'm like, oh, he was.
I've heard a lot of stories like that too. Like people being afraid, like even, you heard it from Chris. I mean, he was nervous to talk to him. A guy like Bruce Drennan, who's been a voice in this town for a long time, was nervous to talk to him. He started talking about movies and they're hitting it off. Like, I've heard stories like that. So I've heard if you got Jim talking and he would tell it like it is.
I wonder how I would react to Jim Brown walking in the room with me. I mean, you guys should know by now, like, I'll go up to anybody and talk to him. That's how I get most of our guests. It's just, I don't care. I'll just go up to anybody. He probably would be one of the few people I'd be like, hi, Mr. Brown. Right. Totally taken out of my element.
And not to dwell on him too much because it's taken away from the real story here, but I would be that way with LeBron. And I feel like if there's any comparison, we don't like comparisons here either, but like LeBron is of this era is our Jim Brown, like that guy that's like that ultimate, and it says a lot. Pictures like him bowing and that the reverence that LeBron showed to Jim Brown, that passing of the trophy from Jim Brown to LeBron, and how much he respected him. The Instagram post, like LeBron took about an hour to put that together. Everything that he said, I don't have it in front of me to read it, but if you go to Instagram, follow King James, or just look up King James, and it'll be right there. Very profound words. A guy like that we put on that high pedestal in a different sport than Jim Brown played, to give him that kind of reverence. And it's not just coming from sports. LeBron's not doing it just from sports. The social activism, civil rights activism that Jim Brown did, we have to mention it all. But he holds that highest standard in people that are held to high regard. And that says a lot about Jim Brown, the person and the player that he was.